You know, it can take decades to build up a brand's reputation. But in today's world, it can all come crashing down in just a few hours. Seriously, one bad ad, one leaked DM, a single tone-deaf comment, and boom, you've got a global firestorm on your hands, costing a company millions, maybe even billions. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how these scandals go viral, and more importantly, what separates the brands that actually survive from the ones that just get, well, canceled. All right, so to really get a feel for how high the stakes are here, let's dive into one of the most just infamous fashion meltdowns of the digital age. I'm talking about Dolce & Gabbana's 2018 crisis in China. It's become a literal textbook example of what not to do.
Okay, so here's what happened. It all kicked off with these campaign videos. They showed a Chinese model trying to eat Italian food, like cannoli with chopsticks. And, it came off as super stereotypical, even racist to a lot of people. But that was just the spark. The real explosion happened when these awful anti-Chinese DMs from co-founder Stefano Gabbana's own Instagram account got leaked. And their immediate response? This absolute classic. Not me. Hacked. Yeah, an excuse that, let's be honest, pretty much nobody believed for a second.
The backlash was just immediate, and it was huge. The brand got dropped from all the big Chinese e-commerce sites. Their massive Shanghai fashion show, canceled. And the hit to their brand value, we're talking an estimated loss of over $500 million. I mean, just think about that. It's an absolutely stunning example of how quickly public outrage can vaporize your bottom line. So you gotta ask, how does a disaster this big even happen? Well, it's really a symptom of this massive power shift that's been happening in the world of branding. See, today, there are basically two dominant and often totally conflicting philosophies for how you build a brand, especially in a world as intense as fashion.
All right, so on one side, you've got the old guard, the heritage luxury houses. Think of them like a private, exclusive club with a velvet rope. Their whole strategy is built on control, on silence, on this aura of inaccessibility. Then on the other side, you have the new wave brands. These guys were born on the internet. Their goal is the total opposite. They want to be everywhere. They want to go viral. They want to make you feel like you're not just a customer, but part of the inner circle.
And this chart really breaks it down, right? The heritage brands, their main goal is brand preservation. They want to protect that legacy. And their authority, it comes from the top down, the big name fashion editors and critics. To them, a product is like a piece of art, an investment. But the new wave brands, they're all about brand awareness, just getting the name out there. And their authority is bottom up, built by influencers and their community online. For them, a product isn't just a thing to own, it's a prop for creating the next viral piece of content. Yeah, for a brand like Hermes or Chanel, it all boils down to one word: scarcity. Their power comes from the fact that you can't just get their stuff easily. The whole mystique around a Birkin bag is built on the fact that you can't just walk into a store and buy one. Their entire model is built on this idea: if everyone has it, nobody wants it. The second it becomes too common, the magic is gone. Now, let's flip that completely on its head and look at the new wave. Think about a brand like MSHF, the ones who made those giant, bright red cartoon boots you saw everywhere. For them, visibility is everything. Their products are literally designed to become memes. They're not really selling a boot, they're selling a viral moment. The philosophy is simple: if you don't see it online, it doesn't exist. Social proof is their lifeblood. Okay, so you've got these two completely opposite ways of thinking, right? The old guard and the new wave. So where does this battle play out? Well, it's not in some fancy boardroom. It's in a brand new, incredibly powerful, and totally unforgiving arena, what we call the court of public opinion. And this is where the final verdict on a brand's reputation gets handed down. So what exactly is this court? Well, it's not a legal system at all. It's a social one. There are no lawyers here, just screenshots and hashtags. Verdicts aren't decided over months or years, they're decided in hours. And maybe the most important rule of all, in this court, you're basically considered guilty until you can prove you've changed. Silence isn't just silence, it's seen as an admission of guilt. And you know what's crazy? The whole process has become almost predictable. It follows a pattern. Step one is the trigger. A brand makes a big mistake. Step two, the signal. An industry watchdog, maybe an account like Diet Prada, puts them on blast for everyone to see. Step three is the echo chamber. The story just explodes across social media with trending hashtags and all that. And finally, step four, the demands. This is where the public makes it clear they don't just want a simple apology. They want real, concrete action. Okay, so now that we get the rules of this new court, let's look at how two major brands actually handled it in the real world. One of them, well, they fumbled it badly and made everything way worse. But the other, they managed a pretty remarkable recovery. So let's start with the failure, Balenciaga. Back in 2022, they released a couple of really controversial campaigns. In one, they had photos of children holding teddy bears that were dressed in BDSM-style harnesses. Then, in a separate campaign, people spotted a document on a desk in the photo that was from a Supreme Court case about child pornography laws. It was not good. And here's where it all went so wrong. Instead of immediately taking full responsibility, their first move was to try and shift the blame. They filed this huge $25 million lawsuit against the production company involved, and the public saw right through it. It just looked like a cowardly way to pass the buck, and it poured gasoline on the fire. The whole crisis just spiraled completely out of control.
All right, now for the flip side, a recovery. In 2019, Gucci had its own massive crisis. They released the sweater that, well, it was widely and rightly condemned for looking a lot like racist blackface imagery. The outrage at first was just as intense, but their response couldn't have been more different from Balenciaga's. Honestly, Gucci's response was a masterclass in how to handle this. They didn't just tweet out a generic apology. No, they took immediate, real action. They pulled the sweater from all their stores right away. They issued a direct, unreserved apology. But then they went further. They launched the Gucci Changemakers program, hired a global director for diversity and inclusion, and set up scholarship funds. You see the difference? They didn't just say sorry. They used the crisis to make real systemic changes. They showed everyone they were actually listening. So, what's the big takeaway here? When you look at these successes and these failures side by side, a really clear, simple playbook starts to emerge for how to handle a crisis in this new digital age.
It really all comes down to these 3 A's. First, acknowledge. You have to admit what's happening, and you have to do it fast. Silence is basically an admission of guilt. Second, apologize. And I mean a real, sincere apology. None of that fake corporate "we're sorry if you were offended" nonsense. You have to own the mistake, period. And third, and this is the most important one, act. Talk is cheap. You have to show you're changing with real, tangible actions, just like Gucci did. That's the only way you can even begin to rebuild trust.
And all this brings us to one final, really interesting question. As more and more brands get wise to this playbook, are we actually seeing a genuine shift? Are companies becoming more accountable, more ethical? Or are they just getting better at the performance of an apology? Just doing what it takes to survive the court of public opinion? That really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?